Green.
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 Green. Green.
If you like a lot of green, this comic is for you.
Green Lantern, the title, is in trouble, but we want to keep publishing it. Well, my boy, what do you have? What do you got? Well, what I had was, I'm doing this peacenik stuff, and it's stuff I believe in passionately. And I am never going to be a fiery young orator who's going to galvanize the masses and lead the marches. And no, I'm a skinny little shy guy who's very shy. But I had access to comic books.
Our job as the artist and writer at times is to tell the story the way it suits the story. After all, as Shakespeare would say, the play is the thing. It's not the artist, it's not the director, it's not the producer, it's the story. If you're not faithful to the story, if the play isn't the thing, then why are you doing it in the first place? Well, in comic books, as with film, as with everything else, we're all servants of the story. We can warp the story, we can make it incorrect, or we can do it in a way that we believe is correct. If people agree with us, they'll like it. If they don't agree with us, they'll hate us.
Green Lantern issue 76 from 1970 by artist Neal Adams and writer Denny O'Neil is a turning point for the series. Not only does Green Arrow get a new home as a regular in this title, the tone changes noticeably, going from Silver Age wacky sci-fi to a street-level exploration of social issues in the US. Hal Jordan's co-creator Gil Kane's influence is apparent in this run as Adams respectfully channels Kane's style.
We read Green Lantern, the fans read Green Lantern because of Gil Kane. Didn't matter who wrote it. It was Gil Kane, because his dynamic way of doing things. So he, even before I came around, he was doing this wonderful stuff. He then retired to do a graphic novel as an independent artist, independent creator. So the question was, did it just rest on Gil Kane? Yes, it did. So I asked if I could do it, and I would try to do Gil Kane. I would do Gil Kane doing Green Lantern. But then Julie Schwartz said, well, wait a second. Since you did Green Arrow and you changed Green Arrow over in Brave and Bold, why don't we put them together in one comic book?
The story opens up with Hal protecting a landlord from disgruntled tenants. So he already doesn't look great. Hal goes overboard and arrests a guy for complaining to his landlord. Just puts this guy in an emerald cage and launches him to the police station. Green Arrow, who watched the whole thing go down and did nothing, confronts GL and shows him there are two sides to every story, showing him how unlivable the building is. A run that was previously a more sanitized sci-fi comic where Hal Jordan fought robots and aliens and Quardian weapons makers becomes a run with something to say about poor living conditions, wealth inequality, racial discrimination, cults, addiction, microplastics, anything this creative team wanted to cover that we deal with in real life.
So now Green Lantern was not just Green Lantern, but he was the conservative Green Lantern, the standard bearer of the Republican Party. And Green Arrow was the standard bearer of the Democratic Party, or the liberal, or whatever.
So we came up with the idea of doing stories based on what was happening in the headlines. Experimental. We did the first one, it was Green Lantern 76. And there was no PR departments. Now if you did it, there would be something that was that much of a departure, there would be a lot of fanfare, because there are people whose jobs it is to produce fanfare. But then our names did begin to get mentioned, and we began to be invited places, which was not done. I mean, we were comic books, remember, semi-pornographic, disreputable, shit-lit, literature for the illiterate.
In issue 76, O'Neil and Adams launch this run with an iconic scene, where GL gets confronted by a black gentleman on the rooftop of the apartment building. The man asks why Hal roams the cosmos but doesn't help black folks on Earth. The coloring and backgrounds here do this sequence a lot of favors, with the middle panel turning bright red as the man shoots for the heart. That third panel gives the scene a static look to add to Hal's confusion. Hal asks what he can do, to which the man responds that he's not an advice committee, claims that if Hal wants to help, he'll find a way on his own. Personally, I like this moment, as it reflects how black folks or non-white, non-European races or ethnicities are expected to handhold, perform free labor, and give advice to the same people who benefit from the privileges that create racial and ethnic inequality in the first place. The man is right. The people who are serious about working on their privileged, racist, or culturally ignorant views will do so, without expecting racially or ethnically marginalized people to do the labor for them. Just watching a TED Talk on racism and calling it a day doesn't work though. This applies to Hal, who has the ring and the resources of the Guardians of Oa at his fingertips. These discussions often don't lead to real change. White European people usually fool themselves into thinking they've done something while still benefiting from their privilege.
I've heard Elijah Muhammad say this: there are many white people who mean right and in heart want to do right, but there are so few. If 10,000 rattlesnakes was coming down that aisle now, and I had a door here I could shut, and in that 10,000, 1,000 meant right. 1,000 rattlesnakes didn't want to bite me. I knew they were good. Should I let all these rattlesnakes come down, hoping that 1,000 get together and form a shield? Or should I just close the door and stay safe?
Because they are committed only in a lukewarm manner. And every time you move to try to solve the problem, they will respond by saying, you're moving too fast, you ought to cool off, you should put on brakes. And they end up more devoted to order than to justice, and are more devoted to maintaining a sort of negative peace, which is merely the absence of tension, than gaining a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. And they can always say to you that you should wait for a more convenient season. And I've come to see that these are the people that often stand in the way because they get close enough to you to at least discuss your plans, and they become friendly enough to talk with you. You at least have dialogue with them. But they want to stand in the way of every move forward. And this has been my disappointment. I think at times it is better to have outright rejection and misunderstanding from people of ill will than to have lukewarm acceptance from people of goodwill. It is better to have absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will than to have partial understanding from people of goodwill.
You feel, however, that we're making progress in this country and worldwide?
No. I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. They won't even admit the knife is there.
Hal goes to confront the landlord. Even then, the Guardians of Oa argue that the landlord, quote, has committed no crime, unquote, even though the rent is high and the building is falling apart, making the conditions unlivable. Green Arrow would call the Guardians fascists as spit flies out of his mouth. Adams and O'Neill show Hal clashing with the authority of the Guardians. While he's cleaning up space trash, Hal decides he would be more useful on his home planet, thinking back to his conversation with the man on the rooftop. While this run can be seen as the roast of Hal Jordan, it works for this version of the character. To be fair, Green Arrow gets called out for some of his behavior, where Ollie sometimes does act like a hypocrite who can't put his money where his mouth is. In the epilogue, the creative team has Ollie describe the down-to-earth plan for this run. Hal, Ollie, and a Guardian nicknamed Old Timer traveling across the US and confronting the injustices impacting the country.
So what we mean by black power is we mean to have not only black political power, but black economic power, to have a voice in the educational system, that our kids will know, not only the black kids, but the white kids should know the kind of contribution that have been made by black people throughout this country. We want to determine some of our destiny. And this is what black power means. We want to have something to say about our destiny.
Fast forward to issue 87 from 1971, where we get the first appearance of John Stewart. Stewart's introduction to the DC universe hits hard, but not as hard as the bus that laid out Guy Gardner in this story. With Gardner out of commission, the Guardians decide to find a new GL replacement for Jordan, seeing Stewart as a strong candidate.
John Stewart is the first, as far as I know, the first black comic book superhero that had a college education and a profession and was an ex-Marine, somebody who you can be proud of. I was a little sick of gangbangers who get struck by lightning and turn into good guys and suddenly get a superpower. I don't think it takes superpowers to make good people. So I was a little bit annoyed at the process that went into making black superheroes.
As someone who watched the Justice League cartoon when that was coming out, John Stewart, played by Phil Lamar, was my Green Lantern. From the moment Stewart steps onto the page, his personality is fully formed. This version is more expressive than the cartoon version, but he's still no nonsense about things. He calls out a cop for messing with two black men playing dominoes on the sidewalk. The cop's response depicts the threat of violence, but since this is a DC comic from the 70s, the comics code comes into play. Quote, "Policemen, judges, government officials, and respected institutions shall never be presented in a way as to create disrespect for established authority." Unquote. It's not necessary to show the violence for the sake of it, but this scene is a very sanitized depiction of the aggressive policing black folks have to deal with constantly, showing something like playing dominoes being used as an excuse to start a problem. It also shows Stewart's bravery in the face of danger, and he's doing all of this without a ring. Hal is still hesitant and says Stewart has a chip on his shoulder, as if Hal didn't arrest a guy and launch him into the air for confronting a corrupt landlord. Also, the Guardian calls Hal a bigot. It's revealed that Stewart is an architect, but he has issues finding work due to discrimination even with his credentials. Some people have to deal with a race struggle on top of class issues. Focusing on only a class war is telling and unproductive. Ignoring the racial and ethnic discrimination only makes things worse. One of the differences between the two lanterns is that Stewart refuses to wear a mask because he doesn't feel the need to hide his identity. A lot of this issue has Hal undermining Stewart's judgment, which isn't a criticism of Adams or O'Neill, since it serves the story they're telling with Hal. John Stewart is his own character, but shows traits of Jordan and Queen. He'll do the job and arrest the bad guy, but he'll also troll corrupt authority figures. Stewart's sense of humor is used to cover up his frustration with racial inequality in the US. When Hal criticizes Stewart for messing with a politician he was supposed to save, Stewart mentions the politician is a racist trying to run for president.
Don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom. The only way you can have peace is to eliminate those injustices, and the American white man is not going to eliminate them. He's going to talk that pretty talk, but he'll still continue to practice those inhuman deeds.
And ain't nobody ever been put on this earth that everybody liked. They done killed Martin Luther King, and the only thing he kept singing was, "We shall overcome in love and peace." Killed him, wiped him out. Killed Malcolm. Wiped out everybody, man. Don't you understand? And some cat hired 3 black cats to wipe out the man who was the martyr of our time.
You know, he would illustrate it this way. Is the sheep preaching hate when he says, "I'm not going to let the wolf eat me anymore. If the wolf comes in here, next time he comes in here, I'll do whatever I have to do to keep him off my back"? Is the sheep violent or is the wolf the violent one? He wasn't teaching hate, he was teaching common sense. You know, somebody's knocking you over the head, stop them. Do whatever you have to do to stop them. You know, the ones that were knocking him over the head were afraid of the fact that he might swing back, so they said, "No, he's teaching hate, he's violent."
Later, Hal assigns Stewart to protect this wannabe president from an assassination attempt while he gives a self-explanatory speech. None of this is new, as white people across the political spectrum still hold these views, and 1971 was not that long ago. A young black man steps out of the crowd and fires at Senator Bigot. John stays behind while Hal chases after the shooter. Stewart ends up taking down a real assassin who is a white man. He revealed to Jordan that the first shooter was bait and had a gun loaded with blanks. The real shooter intended to target a cop and frame the black man, a plot designed to elicit sympathy for senator hatred and frame black folks for initiating violence against the police. It isn't until the last panel of this issue that Hal finally warms up to Stewart. The last line of the issue is a little concerning, seeing as Stewart says it, quote, "Style isn't important any more than color," unquote. The entire point of this issue and issue 76 goes against that last line. Race, ethnicity, and color impact a lot of people's lives, so it feels like a cop-out to have that as the last line. I'm not blaming O'Neal or Adams for this. They told this story within the limits of DC Comics and the code. Despite being more competent than Hal in every single scenario, John Stewart still gets nitpicked by Hal with every decision he makes. This is a reality non-Europeans, especially black folks in the West, deal with. Let's be honest, it's not just in the West. These people go to other countries and lecture others on how to act, acting like they were hired by Earth herself to manage everyone else. It's what colonization is built on. Amount of entitlement, theft, audacity, lies, rewritten history, where non-European people are punished for not believing in the lies of those who want them subjugated or dead. The fragile lie of supremacy is built on blaming the people who got robbed while minding their business and acting like human beings. No accountability for the perpetrators themselves. Reverse racism is often used as a gotcha by white people. It does not exist because certain people don't have the privilege to oppress the Western majority systemically. White people are racist in overt and not so subtle ways to put others down, where non-European people just point to history. Speaking the truth can't be categorized as reverse racism. But the entire idea of colorblindness is disrespectful for the reasons I mentioned earlier. When someone claims they don't see color, it's more for their comfort than respecting other people's real experiences. It's not intelligence, it's avoidant and dishonest. Colorblind people, not as in someone who can't see red, but colorblind people pat themselves on the back for looking in the other direction or doing some superficial gesture, like making one Instagram post or sharing a TED Talk, all while continuing to benefit from their comfort-inducing privilege, which they refuse to give up because they're afraid of being treated like how they treat non-European groups. This isn't ancient history, this is right now. People get killed for their race, culture, and ethnicity. Putting on a frog costume or throwing plastic phalluses in public is such a hollow and disrespectful gesture to people who deal with real problems. As if that will make up for 1619 or other European atrocities committed against the world while they demand to be seen as the heroes. Here in the US, black folks especially, but also indigenous and non-Europeans have fought for progress in this country. White people turn everything into a game or try to keep the spotlight on them while they take over other people's causes, while pushing non-European people out and preventing progress. Race, ethnicity, color come with real barriers. Listen, the concept of race was created by Europeans to establish a hierarchy that benefits them and puts everyone else down. Whiteness refers to Eurocentric rather than just skin tone or passing. People outside of that Western demographic get marginalized regardless of those things. However, it gets worse the darker someone's skin tone is. White people hoard all the privilege, make themselves the main characters of everything, and still find a way to complain. Left, right, or centrist. That whole class war argument is just a way for them to deflect from confronting racial and ethnic discrimination. When certain people complain about stop being political or stop making it about race, I have some surprising news. Us non-Europeans didn't make it about race. They did.
A comic book is as good as a writer who's sincerely talented and tries hard, and an artist who is very talented and tries very hard can make it. That's how good it can be. So if you put a good artist and a good writer together, and they try really hard to do something good, it just got to be a good comic book. And it can't be trash. It can only be viewed as trash by people who think of it that way.
My info's on my website, along with the transcript for this video. Thanks for watching. Chaos ensues.